All right. Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Gonna wait. I think a few more people are gonna trickle in, so maybe just give a couple more seconds. All right, I will go ahead and get started. So, welcome to Mixpanel. Welcome to the Mobile on Air conference. This is going to be the demo of Mixpanel. My name is Claudia Sellers. I am a sales engineer at Mixpanel. I work out of the New York City office. And before we jump into the platform, I just wanted to take a few minutes to really go over what exactly we mean when we talk about innovation through analytics and why does that matter? How do we do that? So essentially what we mean is when we talk about innovation through analytics, we talk about accelerating innovation and delivering a differentiated customer experience. Now, what that means is that most companies, in fact, all companies are sitting on a gold mine of product data, and they don't have the analytics tools to make it useful. When I talk about sitting on a gold mine of product data, when you think about data and what that means, in the past few years, data has actually become the most valuable resource on Earth. And you could see from a quick Google search, data actually became more valuable than oil. And some people actually say data is the oil of the digital world. Well, what do we mean when we talk about your product sitting on a mountain of data? Now, that's like saying the house that you live in is sitting on a mountain of oil. And environmental impact aside, asking, what do you want to do with that oil? You probably want to make it into something to create value for yourself out of that. Now, data might be the new oil, but ultimately, if you were sitting on your house and you tried to put it in your car to go somewhere, you wouldn't go anywhere. And that's because ultimately data, just like oil in its raw state, is actually unusable. And so Deloitte asks this question. It says, data is the new oil, but where are the refineries? Now, that's actually where Mixpanel is going to come in as the refinery of your data. So we could see in this kind of cheeky diagram, when you have oil, you want to turn it into energy before you can put it in your car and get to point A to point B. That oil to energy process is going to be where the refineries come in. When you have data and you want to turn it into information or knowledge, that's where Mixpanel comes in. It's going to take that raw data, that unusable form of data, turn it into knowledge and information and ultimately truth about your product and the way your users are interacting with your product to be able to make decisions about how you should take the direction of your product. Ultimately, this is just to say that Mixpanel uses data to build better products and grow faster, to set a baseline of metrics for your product to be able to go off of that and choose the best decision going forward to make the best products going forward. Now, Mixpanel is different from other tools in the market. We are actually we were the first behavioral analytics tool that came out in the market. We've been around since 2009, and we really have set the stage for what it means to be a behavioral analytics platform. We are a self-serve platform, and what that means is that anybody can use Mixpanel. You don't have to know code, you don't have to know SQL, you don't have to have a PhD in analytics. Anybody can go in and ask questions about the data to get answers. Those answers are going to be about the way your users are interacting with your product to be able to empower product, engineering, design, growth, analyst teams, UX teams, all these different teams that are core to the fundamental success of your product, be able to empower them to get the answers that they need. Ultimately, what it means to drive innovation and growth is to get more answers for more people. And these are some of the companies that Mixpanel works with, just to give an example of the companies that really base Mixpanel as their source of truth to get those answers for themselves, to be able to drive that innovation of their product and grow their team. So now that we've jumped into that, now that we've given a high-level overview of really what Mixpanel is, why it's important, I'm actually going to jump right into the platform. This is what Mixpanel has looked like. And some of you might be familiar, some of you may have worked with us in the past. We ship features at lightning speed, so even if you've worked with us in the past 6 months, this might look new and improved to you. We really keep innovating our product because that's what we believe in for our product philosophy, and that's what we do as a company ourselves. Now, what you're seeing here is actually an example of something that might not be the most used data table in Mixpanel, but it really illuminates Mixpanel's data model. So that's why I'm just going to go over it briefly. On the left-hand side, you have a user profile. This user is Julie Douglas, and this on the left-hand side is going to be all of her events. So this is really just all of the events that happen in the platform that Julie has done or that have happened related to Julie. So this doesn't have to be a click stream. This doesn't have to be something that Julie does. This actually can be something like an API call or an authentication error, anything that relates to Julie's activity in the platform. On the right-hand side here, this is actually a different collection of data that Mixpanel collects in its backend to make sure that we can answer all types of questions. Now, this data table is going to be profile properties. So where this is events properties and this is profile properties, this just means that this is the most current state of the user. These are going to be overwritten as the user changes state to allow you to answer questions like, based on my users that are paid, what were they doing when they were a free user to allow them to facilitate them to sign up for a paid subscription model or for a purchase? These are the types of answers that we can get asking the questions that we want based on this data model. Now, events and users have details about them. These are going to be the event properties, which are just the details about the events that describe what happened within that event. Mixpanel collects details by default, but we also allow you to add custom properties, which means that this makes it custom to your platform. Now, you might be wondering where this user profile is coming from, what platform I'm actually showing you. This platform and this user profile is a fake data set that I chose to demonstrate the capabilities of Mixpanel. And this is actually going to be a play on YouTube, not real data, of course, but this is a media platform, a fake media platform called MeTube. And this is just an example of an implementation that we could see with a media platform like this. So moving on from the user profile, and John, I definitely see your question. I just want you to know we will definitely get to how to show daily active and monthly active users in Mixpanel. But right before we do that, I want to talk about what it means to know about your user's interaction. When we talk about a user profile, that's going to be one individual user. But we also want to make sure that we can group these users by behavior, by properties, and actually ask questions about specific types of groups of users. So what this is this is a cohort builder in Mixpanel. And this is just the blank cohort builder, but I've actually built out a cohort that we can look at to make sure that the capabilities are really highlighted here. In any behavioral analytics platform, it's going to be very easy to say what users did. Well, not very easy, but relatively easy. So when we ask what users did, the reason that's relatively easy is because when you pass something to Mixpanel, when a user does something, that activity gets passed to Mixpanel. What's harder to do is to ask the question about what users did not do. And so and the reasons for that are obviously because if someone doesn't do something in Mixpanel, how does Mixpanel know about that? Well, magically, we do know about that. And in the cohort builder, you can actually specify people that, for example, did not add friends and did not watch a video and did not do any event at all. And I'm sure as you've seen with just the click of a button, you can change this logic to reflect more complicated use cases, to reflect the exact types of cohorts that you want to see. people that did not add friends and did not watch a video, or people that just did not do any event at all. When you save this cohort, this is actually going to be something that you can now use for every single report in Mixpanel to be able to see the activity based on this group of people. Just to drive the point home too, this is a more complex cohort. It can get more and more complex, but this is just an example of the type of logic you can use. This is going to be a group of people that watched the video at least 3 times in the last 7 days and purchased 1 time, then clicked an email. This logic is important because this actually separates Mixpanel from several other tools in the space, because you can actually specify different behavioral logic in time. You don't just have to specify and or not. You can actually say people who did this and then did this. And Mixpanel is going to be really the only platform that allows you to specify that specific behavioral logic so you can build behavioral cohorts. That's the Cohort Builder. That shows you how detailed and granular you can get within Mixpanel. When you build a cohort, it's going to come to a section like this, and it's going to show you how many users are in it. It's going to show you which the users are. But Mixpanel actually goes further than that. So I'm going to click on that Visualize Trend button, and while that's loading, bandwidth on my Wi-Fi here because of the video, this actually changes from being a cohort with just a number, so 600 people are in this cohort, for example, to something that you can use as a metric. Now, the reason that this is important is because when you have a cohort like power users or inactive users, you don't want to just know randomly or arbitrarily how many users are within that cohort. You actually want to see, okay, now does this grow or shrink over time? Am I gaining more power users over time? Is my level of inactivity shrinking over time? When I visualize the trend in the cohorts, this is going to show me cohorts over time. And this is important because this changes what was once a number into a metric. Now, you see that we've actually changed to go into one of the reporting functions in Mixpanel. This is our Insights tool, and this is what people typically think of when they think of a analytics tool. This is really just slicing and dicing your data, pivoting on property values, being able to break down by different behavioral event properties. But what I can do with this type of analysis, the questions that I can ask are really based on different events, understanding those different events. So I queued up one of the reports, and John, this is actually, we can get into the DAU and MAU here, but this is going to be based on different events and different properties, understanding more about the complexity per property per event. So here we have an example of an event create playlist. And again, this is in a MeTube platform where we can ostensibly create a playlist of videos. And I want to know the total amount of times that the playlist has been created in the last 96 hours. So let's actually take this breakdown out here to just show you, here's a simple bar graph to show you exactly how many times in the last 96 hours that event has been performed. Now, let's say that I wanted to not just see how many times the create playlist has been done in the last 96 hours. This is where this query builder is actually going to let me base different operators and choose different ways of viewing the data. So as you can see here, this is going to be per event data. I can also do based on the users. So here I can just click the create playlist and the daily active users. This is going to show me that daily active use over time. And again, this is fake data, so this might be a little crazier than you'd see in real data. But that's the simple way you can actually, with a click of a button, just see the daily active users, the monthly active, the weekly active users. I can choose different events. I can choose, for example, all events, my top events, to be able to really go from a high level downward. What are my monthly, what are my weekly, what are my daily active usage look like? And this is going to show you, based on my top events, how each of those are comparing to each other. Again, all within the UI, all within the click of a button. Now, that's obviously not the only thing we want to see. Maybe we want to see the total amount of events, and I want to see, let's go back to that click playlist event or create a playlist event. This is going to show me, if I switch it to a bar graph, this is going to show me the amount of times that happened. But I don't just care about that. I want to know based on different properties. I have different properties associated with that event. Maybe the playlist has hashtags that they can search based on. And so I want to know per hashtag, what is the amount of times that a playlist has been created. It looks like hashtag my weird gym story is the leading hashtag in create a playlist. But this is really just to highlight that I can break down by as many properties as I want. I can break down by hashtag, by platform. I can go as far as I want and as granular and detailed as I want to really be able to understand that specific event and be able to change my product to optimize for it and cater to it in different regions, for different app versions, for different platform, iOS models, all sorts of things so that I can make this the best possible experience for my users. Now, that is the insights behavior. One more thing to just add about this, and I just saved this as a Claudia report, but this, again, is we want to make sure this is not just a number, but also a metric. So within Insights, I can actually create alerts to show me, okay, if this, based on the hashtags, based on the platform, goes above or below a certain threshold, I want you to actually email me so that I know, hey, either something is going great or something is going very wrong in my app. Maybe there's a bug, maybe there's an error, and I can actually just get not have to manually look at that each time and be monitoring it all the time. Mixpanel can actually just tell me when something is going drastically wrong, when there's an outlier, so that I can tell and make sure that I can be responsible for everything going on in my product. Not only that, but if I change this to a line graph, I can actually also see, based on these dips and spikes and trends, maybe there's something, there's a feature launch or some crash. I can add annotations based on the context of the data so that each time I share this report going forward, people will now be able to see the context of the data based on the annotations that I've made in the platform. So that's just the start of what we can do with Mixpanel. This is really the most granular levels of figuring out how people are performing different events based on different properties, based on their own properties, based on cohorts. But Mixpanel, we know that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. People don't just do one event, two events in a vacuum. They do it within the context of an entire workflow. And it's important in a product to optimize that workflow or to figure out what it is in general that people are doing within your app. Mixpanel's flow report is going to be what allows you to answer a very open-ended, what is the workflow question. Now, when I look into the flows report, this little tagline that I put here just for this demo says that it lets us map out the user journey. This is actually going to let us map out the most common and frequent user journeys so that I can optimize for that or change points of friction within that. So let's start with one event here. Basically, I'm going to choose either a starting or an ending point. And if I can start with any action, any event in my product. But let's just start with session start for this. Now, when I scroll down, this is a Sankey diagram, a Sankey visualization that's going to show me the most frequent paths my users take. When I press on the starting block, this actually is going to now highlight for me the most frequent path so that I can see exactly how my users are going throughout my platform. So it looks like once the session starts, they watch a video, then they like something, they purchase something, so on and so forth. This allows me to make sure that I know exactly what my users are doing to be able to monitor that funnel going forward and optimize for those points of conversion or change those points of friction. However, within this query builder, this general query builder up here, We don't only want to see what people do once they do an event. We want to be able to change on different properties. So for example, if they watched a video, maybe I want to know based on what video, what do they do? I can actually now expand this flow by the property of video name. And as you see here, this is actually going to change my entire flows diagram to now be able to see what is happening per the video name. So when I click into it again, it will just show me the different types of sessions and the different types of flows based on what people do based on the video name. Again, flows is really highlighting a very open-ended question that you can ask about your users. It's saying, what do my users do once they start with something, or how do my users get to a value moment, such as a purchase or a sign up? That's going to be able to be visualized in here as well. Moving on from the flows report, we have funnels. Now, many of you may be familiar with funnels, but Mixpanel's funnels really allow you to look at this data, look at this user interaction in a much more detailed way. So here we have maybe learned about the critical path from flows. We know what the user flow is that we care about. And now we want to monitor it in funnels to be able to know exactly what the properties are, what the users are doing, and how many users, specifically how many users are completing the funnel and how many users are dropping off. So here I have a 3-step funnel based on ad conversion. So I want people, maybe I want to facilitate different types of advertisement of ad agencies purchasing ad space on my platform. And I want to know who the people are that are watching a video, getting the impression of an ad, and then converting based on that ad. Here, this is going to show you the overall conversion rate. And in this case, conversion here just means moving on from step to step. So you can see highlighted here that there's a 47% overall conversion rate between all the steps. We can also show you that there's the 62% conversion rate between these two steps and a 76% conversion rate between these two. But you can really see all of the different conversion rates per step, not just overall. This dark blue bar is going to denote the entire population of users who have done this action in the last 10 days. Sorry, excuse me, in the last 29 days. And when we move here, this bar is now the group of users who have completed the ad impression. This bar is going to be the drop-offs. And you can see when I click into it that I can actually have the option to create a cohort right from Mixpanel's UI to be able to save about the drop-offs in this funnel to make sure that I can message them, retarget them, or somehow optimize future behaviors so that they don't drop off or so that they are re-engaged with the platform. Now, this is a 3-step funnel, and certain other platforms might limit you in the amount of steps that you can add per funnel to 5 or 4. Mixpanel lets you add essentially as many steps as you want. You can make this funnel as many steps as you want, as complicated as you want. We can also break down by different properties. So maybe I want to know the attribution channel that people came from when they saw the ad impression, when they watched the video. This is going to show me the different attribution channels, as well as the statistical significance based on the overall conversion rate per attribution channel. Now, this is not the only way to visualize funnels. This might show you the drop-off rate and the conversion rate, but that's not the only source of friction that you might find in a funnel. So Mixpanel actually lets you visualize these funnels in other ways. We have funnel trends, which is going to show you how this funnel trends over time, the conversion rate over time, not just in that one specific snapshot of time. We also have time to convert. Now, what this means is if we take a look at our funnel again, we have watch video, ad impression, ad conversion. This means that between all steps, it took people on an average about 0 hours to convert between all steps. So this is going to actually be that length of quote unquote session, the length that it took between all steps that people take to do the next one. I can actually zoom into this and say within 1 hour, within 1 second, how the exact amount of time it takes for people to do one step and then the other. Again, I can grab this right here, the people who took 0 to 1 hour. I can grab the people who took 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe this is you can see this is the population distribution. The people who are on the edge of this, I can create a cohort and be able to target them as well. Now, this is going to show me, again, the amount of time it took for people to do one step and then the other. But in tandem with that, maybe there's a button that people press or something that people do that they have to do a certain amount of times before moving to the next step. Frequency in funnels is going to show you how many times people had to, for instance, watch a video before they got to an ad impression. If people are doing 1 video watch, 2 video watch, 3 video watches before they get to an ad impression, that might not be actually what we want the amount of ad impressions to be per user. Maybe in order to optimize for that conversion rate, we want to make sure that people are seeing multiple ad impressions per video. This is going to allow you to see how many times people do a step before moving on to the other one. So with the information of who is converting between the steps, how much time it's taking them to convert, as well as the amount of times they have to do one step before going to the other, Mixpanel's Funnels is really going to be able to show you in the most granular way the amount of times, or the workflow, the critical path that people are taking going from point A to point B. And again, just like anything else, we can always break down this query by attribution channel to see how it performs based on different properties. And you can add about as many properties as you want. One more thing to highlight in funnels is that this specific funnel is going to be ordered. I care that people watch a video, then have an ad impression, then have an ad conversion. But there are some funnels where I want to know the conversion rate, and I don't necessarily care about the order that it happens. I can actually choose within Mixpanel to show the funnel steps in a specific order. In any order within the funnel, so that I can see, okay, maybe I want people to watch a video, and then I want them to convert and have an ad impression in any order. Of course, this isn't the perfect funnel because usually people have an ad impression before converting, but just to give an example of the functionality, these little stars are going to denote any order that the steps can be in. And Mixpanel is actually going to be able to calculate a different conversion rate per that funnel. You can see that that funnel actually changes the conversion rate if I change the steps, if I change the order that the steps are completed in. One important thing to know about Mixpanel is that we can actually let you customize this. Maybe I care about if I have in a specific order, I care that there's somehow a purchase, and now I actually want to change that people are watching a video, getting an ad impression, then converting, but I want the purchase to be at the end. I can change in figure which ones are a specific order and which ones are not. And this is important because this is going to let me actually say, you know, I want people to do this, and then I want them to do X step, Y step, Z step in any order that they'd like. But I know that at the end of the funnel, I then want them to do a specific path. You're going to be able to do that in Mixpanel, which is unique to any other analytics platform on the market. Okay, we've gone over insights, the way that we can break down data and segment by particular properties, really understand those specific events. We've gone over flows, the way we can ask open-ended questions about our data and our users' workflow. What do my users do once they go from point A? How do my users get to point B? And we've gone over funnels, which lets us break down these very critical paths and measure the conversion rate to a specific value moment within our app. Once we have all of this data, we might find something interesting that we now want to optimize for. We might find there's something in our product that we can change, that we can change to drive a conversion rate up, to drive a specific value moment up or down. The typical way for product managers, for product teams, to be able to do this is with an A/B split test. You grab a group of users and you show them perhaps one feature, and you grab another group of users and you show them the control feature, and you let that run for a little bit, and then you compare the effect of the two groups based on the features and decide which one to go on from there. A/B testing is still very important, but sometimes there are features that you want to change, there are things you want to change in the app, and you want to just launch it to every single person, every user. And you don't want to have to split users based on different cohorts, but you still want to be able to calculate the impact that it had on your application. This report in Mixpanel, it's called Impact, and it's going to show you the impact that new changes in your application have on your application, on the metrics that you care about. This is going to be able to simulate an A/B test for you. Again, not replace an A/B test, but simulate an A/B test that lets you launch a feature for all of your users and then see how it impacts the metrics that you care about. So when this impact report is going to answer the question, do videos on iOS impact purchases? So this is going to allow me to choose a launch event. I choose the event watching a video, and I want the app platform to equal iOS. Now, what I care about is how it impacts purchases. Is this going to make more people purchase, more purchases per person, or less? When I go down here, this graph is actually going to show me exactly how that performed 15 days before and after the launch date. This gray bar, this gray shaded bar above the 0 point is going to be the day that the feature was launched and the day that the first user used the feature. Now, we can see these two dotted lines are going to be the average of two groups of people that Mixpanel tracks for you. You don't have to simulate an A/B test or run your own A/B test, excuse me. Mixpanel tracks two groups, the adopters and the non-adopters. The non-adopters are going to act as a kind of control, whereas the adopters are going to be the people who actually did the event that you've launched, and we're going to see how those perform against each other. When this days from launch happens, we see that the delta, the space between the adopters and the non-adopters, is bigger than it was before the launch event. That tells us that the difference in purchase number is actually greater when we launched this feature. And we can see that this post-launch adopters go up and the post-launch non-adopters go down. For an easier way to explain this, this shows us a delta of 0.07 after the launch date with a 99% confidence interval that lets us say that overall, the question of do videos on iOS impact purchases is a yes, and it's a yes in the positive direction. They impact more purchases. So again, this graph, this report really lets you see with assurance how your feature launches, how your design changes, how your messages that you send out are impacting the metrics that you care about. You can also change this from being purchased to a different metric. Maybe you want to know how it impacts purchases, but you also want to know how it impacts future logins. You are able to change the metric out, and Mixpanel will still run the report for you to see how it impacts different metrics that you care about, not just the specific key one that you're looking at. Now, over here, when I go to excuse me, when I go to impact trends, we also have an option to view adoption over time. This is going to show me not just how it impacted the metric that I care about, the purchases, but also how its rate of adoption is trending over time. This is obviously important because if the metric is going up, if purchases are going up based on people watching videos on iOS, but if the adoption rate for that feature for people watching videos is going down, in this case it's going up, but if it were going down, I would want to facilitate that event, that watching video event, to make sure that I can impact that purchase rate. So this lets you have more trust in that previous graph, more trust in that data to say, okay, I know that this launch has impacted the metric that I care about, and I can see that it's getting adopted more and more over time. So I should be able, in a predictable and routine way, be able to predict that the rate of purchases will go up over time as the adoption trends upward. Essentially, this report is going to take everything that we've learned in the past reports, everything that you see about your users, how they're operating within your application, and let you change something and measure the impact of how that change works going forward. Another report that we have moving on is the retention report. This report is going to measure retention, which is defined in a very specific way in Mixpanel. Now, each company, based on your business model, based on your product, might have a different way of measuring retention, but this retention report is going to be able to show you users who did event A and came back and did event B. Now, as you can see here, event A and B can be any event. So users who did any event came back and did any event. And when I scroll down, the graph is going to be able to show me the average retention as it happens over time. We can also look at this in the table view to see, based on the cohort size, how many people within that cohort, and we'll get the absolute number of people to show a little bit clearer, but how many people within that cohort came back 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 days later, so on and so forth. Again, this report can be changed to be somebody who watched a video and then came back and watched another video. It can be watched a video, did any event, but really we're going to be able to see how that trends over time for people who did something and then came back and did another thing. We can also view this as frequency, which means that this is just going to be the same event, and it's going to actually show me in a different way how many times users did it within a certain amount of hours. So it looks like for this cohort on March 14th, 227 users actually did watch video again within 2 hours once completing the first watch video. So that's just to say that the way people do something and come back, the way you can measure how sticky your application is, how sticky certain features are, if people are really coming back and doing something, how long it's taking them to come back, this is all able to be measured in the retention report. And we can actually follow up with other questions, maybe how long did it take them to come back and watch another video, by going into the funnels report and seeing that time to convert. But essentially the workflow in Mixpanel is going to feed into each other. The questions that you ask, that you get from learning things about your product in one report, are going to be able to dive into further in another report. So that's really our core reporting. There's a few other reports, but there's about 20 minutes left here. And I think it is important to talk about just a little bit about Mixpanel's data management capabilities. Implementation on Mixpanel is going to be code-based, so you're going to want to put one of our SDKs into your source code of your application, or be able to use the different libraries that we have to get those events and get it tracking within Mixpanel. But we also offer several different uses within the UI to be able to manage that data without actually touching the code once you have certain events tracked. So within the data management tab in Lexicon, we can actually see all of the events that are being tracked. Now, I can also, within Mixpanel, if there are certain events being tracked, and let's say another team tracks events that are page view, and I'm tracking an event that is also page view, or maybe there's two events that I wish I can see the cumulative effect of because they count as almost one event that I can go in and measure more deeply. Mixpanel is going to offer custom events to be able to create within the UI based on the other events that you're already tracking. So we can see here, this video view custom event is actually going to be the watch video event where we are tracking, but it's where the account type is equal to business. So I can actually see in Mixpanel without tracking a different type of property, without tracking a different type of event, Mixpanel an event that only lets me ask questions about the business users who are watching videos. Based on different properties, based on different events, this is going to let you create those new events that let you really change your data, manage your data, and merge your data all within the Mixpanel UI. We also have event properties and user profile properties. Now, these are actually able to be customized too. Mixpanel has a custom properties faculty. So if I were to go back into the insights report, for example, I can actually, on the fly, all within the UI, break down by a property where I can apply a formula and break down by a custom property. Now, I can insert an example where I can resize the range for an example of a certain property. Maybe I want to do days since sign up, and all I have to do is select a property of, doing maybe the age, based on the age, based on the ad impression count, the days since sign up. Either way, I can apply that property and be able to easily break down within Mixpanel based on those properties. And I'm just seeing a question here. Is it as easy to do Mixpanel tracking from backend servers and services as it is from front-end platforms? The answer is obviously based on the way that your application is written. It will be variable, but the short answer is yes. And we actually have different libraries for server side as well as for client side or front end client side, so that you can use that all within the source code. You can just paste that snippet based on what language it's written in, and then be able to use those shortcuts to pass events from the server or from the client side to Mixpanel. The only difference in the server side and client side implementation is really not the ease. The ease of use is virtually the exact same. But obviously there's going to be properties in the client side and the front end that are tracked by default that can't be tracked on the server. So most implementations that we see do a hybrid of server side and client side implementation to get those types of events based on the client side, maybe like a purchase click button event on the client side, and then passing a authorized purchase server event once you get that on your backend server, passing that to Mixpanel too, so you can make sure that that full workflow is getting completed. Hattie, I hope that answers your question. And if anybody else has any questions, great. Makes sense. And if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to ask them. Have no problem going into any implementation or other reporting capabilities questions. And of course, if you have questions about specifically your own platform and how this might look for you, please reach out on mixpanel.com and our sales team, and would be happy to have an exploratory discussion. So moving back into Lexicon, we were talking about these custom events, these custom properties, where I can, all within the UI, merge different events, be able to create different properties based on the ones I already have. But I can actually also And this is a relatively new capability that only Mixpanel has. Sorry, gonna take another question real quick. John, can you create interactive push messages? Yes, you absolutely can in Mixpanel, and I know I really focused on the analytics features that we have here. We obviously do have a tab for messaging and experiments here. I will just click on this really quick so we can see a quick example. Just so the caveat here is that for Mixpanel's messaging, it's absolutely, you can create rich push messages with it, dynamic email, SMS, push, and in-app notification messages with it. You know, Mixpanel is very much focused on its analytics capabilities. So we have several amazing partners who do all types of, you know, if you were looking to do a drip campaign or some other type of messaging logic. But Mixpanel definitely does have these capabilities where you can create push, in-app, SMS, email messages. And here to show the advanced notification, you can actually customize the dynamic properties with the push messaging. John, does that answer your question? Let me know. Okay, awesome. So really quick, and again, please feel free to interrupt me. Keep the questions coming. This is great. Within the data model, though, I know that sometimes this can just be important because once you implement, you are going to want to iterate on the way you do your product, on the way you track your data, and this is going to make it really easy within the Mixpanel UI. We have actually this new capability called Lookup Tables. And what this is I can actually upload a CSV to Mixpanel and map it to the data that I already have. So what does that mean exactly? Well, that means that if let's say I'm tracking a type of properties where I have items that are being purchased and each one costs a specific dollar value. Maybe there's a specific item code that these all are based on in my backend, and I didn't track that up front. Lookup Tables is going to be able to actually let you upload a CSV. All you have to do is in the first column, you basically list the property value that you want to map it to. So this would be the purchase item, right? And then in the second column, we can download this CSV and be able to take a look. We'll see if this opens in the same page. But in the second column, we can actually add the user or the product ID and be able to see exactly and be able to map all within the Mixpanel UI a new property to the existing events that we have. So now with the lookup tables, once I upload this CSV, once I map the product ID to the product, I can go back into Insights and break it down by product ID without having to change any of my code, without having to go in and redo the way that I've been tracking things. If you change anything in your backend, if you change something of maybe a price or you add a new category, that's going to be able to let you map it to an existing property all within Mixpanel. And this is something that is completely new in the space. Mixpanel is essentially the only one that can allow you to do exactly that. The other thing we have is sensitive data permissions. And this is based on the permissions levels that we have for each project. So each Mixpanel project is based in an organization. So there's an organization level and a project level. And you can have multiple projects within the organization. Now, we have several different teams per organization. Maybe there are different visualizations that you want. Maybe there is some specific data that is PII if you're a healthcare company, or sensitive if you're a financial company, or that you just want to make sure isn't consumed by every single consumer of the data. These sensitive data permissions are actually going to let you specifically decide who is and is not able to see these different sensitive data permissions. So you can whitelist people who are able to see sensitive data and not, and you can obviously choose the type of data that is sensitive. Finally, to round out the demo with a few minutes left, about 8 minutes left here. Sorry, one moment, we have a question. So question about lexicon. We use the same generic property name for a few of these, for example, action. However, in lexicon, we only see a single action property to describe. This makes it difficult to properly document the various action properties, which in reality are all different. Do you plan on addressing this? So if I'm understanding the question correctly, essentially instead of merging several events into one, this is segmenting different types of action properties out from each other. If that is the way that you meant it, if not, please feel free to correct me. But the capability of changing properties is actually going to be in, in the insights report or in any report. Break down, let's just reset this so that we can see a fresh page. We have an example coming. We can break down by the formula to apply a formula to a property and segment them out from each other. So the event is a call and the property is an action. The event is a meeting and the property. If you actually want to Slack me after this, I am more than happy to go into this example. So let me speak with you for a few moments after. Okay, great. Yeah, let's have a chat after, and I will definitely go through all of this with you, because yeah, we can definitely make that happen, and I have the time to. So to go back, sorry if that was cut short, essentially the answer to that would be custom properties would allow you to change the property names based on the events, and then you can segment out by those types of properties. But to round out the demo and the tour of Mixpanel, this is a dashboard that you would see at the end. This is kind of the final product, the 30,000-foot view of all of the reports that we've made in Mixpanel, all filtered or all added to a dashboard that we can check every single day, as Mixpanel is obviously our favorite application to check. But we can look into it, and it's very customizable. So you can see here that if I scroll over this, this is actually all in real time. All the data is uploaded in real time. All the data is transformed to reflect the most current state of these reports. And you can actually filter them out by specific properties. So for example, if there's a specific account type that I care about, this is my product dashboard, and I want to just see how all of these reports are behaving in the business account type. I can apply that to the entire dashboard. And now all of the reports, without having to go in and rebuild every single one of them, which can be a pain in the behind, this is all going to be filtered out immediately to show me exactly the account type equals business. One other thing to mention is that these dashboards, we can have multiple dashboards per team. Maybe I have a product dashboard, I have a marketing dashboard to show all of my product KPIs, my marketing KPIs. Maybe I have dashboards by. These can all be segmented out to show you the exact KPIs that you care about when you care about them. I can also email these digests and to notify stakeholders, to notify different people within the organization how my KPIs are trending over time. I can actually choose the dashboards that I want to email, and I can choose different email addresses to be able to send on a daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis so that everybody is in the loop without having to log into Mixpanel. They can get a snapshot of the as it pertains to the month, the day, the quarter, or the week. Finally, the last thing to mention is that on top of all of this segmentation we can do, all of this configurability, Mixpanel also has a feature called Workspaces that is coming soon. A little bit of a teaser for the product roadmap, but Workspaces is basically going to let you to filter out all of your data to different spaces. So whereas this, for example, lets you filter out all of your data to different reports and KPIs and different dashboards, you can actually have entire workspaces where just the product team has all of their data, or just the data team, or even one company has all of their specific company data and another one has their data. But that's just to say that these are highly configurable, highly detailed, and able to be segmented as granularly and as detailed as it can be to suit the needs of your entire organization, of your entire team, and every individual who is going to consume the data. And if you needed to change anything on here, it's very easy to do with the click of a button. You can just change the way it's visualized. You can change the size of it and add reports, delete reports as you see fit to what matters most to you. So with 2 minutes left, that really rounds out my presentation here. I want to thank you guys all for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of the virtual conference. I hope that everybody is doing well with these crazy times. If you have any other questions for me or anybody else, I am going to stay on for a few minutes after to go ahead and answer all those questions. Feel free to reach out to me, claudia.sellers@mixpanel.com. And anything you guys need, any questions that you have, please reach out. Happy to answer them, go over your specific project in detail with you. But thank you guys again, and have a great rest of your day.